My name is Eliana Payne, and I am the director and writer of Passion, a Ketuvim play. It was around Purim time, and traditionally we're supposed to read um, the story twice. And so I was
Mm.
reading it, and I always grew up thinking that Vashti was like terrible because she didn't listen to her husband and all of this stuff. And I reading it, that little section where she's involved, I was like, oh, she's a badass. King Ahasuerus has a party for all of his princes, and then it says, and Vashti had a party or a get together for all the women. And I automatically kind of questioned that and wondered what happened at the party of all women. Uh, I wondered why she wanted a party with all of them and what went on. And it the first time I read it, I automatically thought like I wonder if she like got together with some of these women as her husband may have done with some of the men at his party, who knows. And so the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this this could have happened. She could have identified as queer. Um, and that's where the idea and the process began.
What can you tell us about your research process to going into this, and or whether you consulted with other, Jewish rabbis or other people who would know the history of this?
Yeah, research was interesting. Mostly what I did was I reread the story over and over to see if I could pick apart anything else about not only Vashti but King Ahasuerus. I did talk to a couple rabbis. My favorite rabbis, Rabbi Alex. We had a very in-depth conversation about Vashti and how she was a catalyst for Esther and her coming into the throne and eventually saving the Jewish people. When I first started thinking about actually using Vashti as my main character, I went and talked to Rabbi Alex about it just to see what she would think as far as whether that would be an acceptable thing to uh, embellish upon. She
Mhm.
loved it, and she actually gave me the idea of making Zeresh Vashti's older sister. There's a lot of fan fiction in different Jewish texts, which I find hysterical. And she was telling me about one that she read where it really made sense that Zeresh was Vashti's older sister. And I thought long and hard about that and decided that could be a really fun dynamic. Zeresh, for people that don't know, is Haman's wife. Haman is the evil character that we eventually see once Esther gets to the throne. He's the one that decides to kill all of the Jewish people. Uh, and it's implied actually in the story that Zeresh is behind a lot of the events as far as wanting to kill the Jewish people. So talking to Rabbi Alex and getting that idea and her support of this project and me embellishing upon it with a LGBTQ point of view uh, was awesome. I also talked to the Moishe House Queer Pod, Preston and Jordan, and they both loved it as well. They thought it was a great idea. There's not a lot of reference to any LGBTQ stories, and I thought it was the perfect opportunity to kind of mesh these two worlds together and create something that's new and relatable and beautiful. So there's a lot that can be taken away from me, and I think as I read it, the more I read it, the more I learned, the more I thought other people need to find this power. The fact that she found power in herself and decided to say no back in that time is incredible. So crazy. And the fact that I don't honor her enough is unfortunate. I think that she is a historical character that really needs to be recognized as a forefront, like a runner.
Mhm.
She's incredible. Sh I've learned so much from her just in the little bit that I've done research over. And unfortunately, I did so much research as far as trying to find out more about her. There's literally nothing. It's just speculation and that little piece of text. So all we know about her is that she had a little party for her friends and she purposefully defied her husband's orders, even though it meant that her life would never continue. I think that's something that all women need to take away, and men too, that women can have that power over themselves, even if they're put into a position where they're not supposed to have any say in what goes on for them. So I hope,
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
I hope the audience comes away like seeing that there's always been a power inside of women. It's just they have to have the motivation and opportunity to allow that to direct their own lives instead of letting the men in their lives direct them. It was a process. There were parts and there were times where I was totally down, super stoked, and there were other times where I wanted to give up because so much of it hinged on how much I could embellish while still keeping the integrity of the story and the people. Technically, I believe that these were real people. So, trying to draw the line between what's fiction and what's reality and what could have happened in the middle that we don't know about, that was a really hard process to go through, and trying to decide what wouldn't negatively affect my community and my peers as far as Judaism goes, but also allowing this new power and story to come through. There were a couple moments where I just cried and wanted to give up because it felt so heavy and hard and burdensome. But when all is said and done, I think it's a story. The more I wrote it, the more I was like, this is something that hopefully could change a lot of people's lives and perspectives of women now and women back in that day and the power that they possessed. And so I finished it, and the whole time it was either the power of you're gonna do it, come on, or this is something people need to know. So a good combination of very stressful and hard and also so fulfilling. What sticks out to me the most is the dream that Vashti has.
Mm.
There was another conversation I had with Alex, and it actually was separate. We weren't talking about my play at all. We were talking about women in the text in general and their power. There are several very beautiful women. Uh, JL is one of them, where she like lures this guy that's like bad into a tent, and she's when he's sleeping, she takes a tent peg and like hammers it through his head. So we were just talking about the craziness and dedication of women during that time, and a lot of it was and is overlooked. And I was talking about Sarah, and Rabbi Alex was like, "Hold on a second," and she pulled out a little piece of text, and she was like, "This, this you might find interesting." And it was, I don't have the quote on hand right now, but it was something like, so Abraham was Sarah's husband, and God told Abraham to do whatever Sarah said, which is insane. So Abraham, for those who don't know, is the father of all the descendants of the Jewish people. And we always focus on him and like how he was the father. But in reality, Sarah was the one behind all of that. And God gave her that power. And we miss that a lot, all the time. I didn't even know about that until she brought it up. And after reading that, I was like, oh, this needs to be put into the story. Because it would be really cool and interesting if she found her power from these historical Jewish women where God literally gave them the power to have reign, not only over their husbands, but over themselves. Um, so when I had that conversation, I went home and immediately wrote that entire dream sequence because I was so inspired with all of these little pieces of the stories and texts that we have that are overlooked when it comes to women doing what's right for them and not what men tell them to do. And God told her, like the very purest form, God told her that she has power over her own life, and that her husband, Abraham, has to listen to her. So when I was writing the dream sequence, and another thing that I thought was really fun, Rabbi Alex had talked about a theory where Vashti had turned Jewish, had converted to Judaism in the end before she died. So I kind of ran with that and decided to put in this dream where this foreign god to her spoke and gave her the power to do what she wanted with her own life. So both dream sequences, really, but the one with Sarah is my absolute favorite. I feel powerful every time I read that little section and hear it. I'm like, yes, my God told me that I have the power, not this silly patriarchy that seemed to have formed. In the very beginning, women were the ones that were supposed to have that authority, and we're taking that back.